Hey there, geeks! Adam coming at you with another installment of Comic Card Crazy. This is actually part 2 of our look at Defective Comics, a truly unique comic set, kind of a Mad Magazine parody of what was going on in the world of comic books in the 90s. That's at least what we were looking at in the first installment. But we are going to get into some stuff that's more Golden Age, Silver Age this time around. But I did want to mention something interesting. Inside, there is a sweepstakes entry form, okay? Where you can send this in to win what? Well, it says here one winner will get one copy each of every regular edition Valiant comic book printed as of January 31st, 1994. This prize will not include special send-in, dealer-only, or foil-covered books. So I just thought that was fascinating because they did make fun of a lot of Valiant comics. Of course, Buttshot was my favorite last time, right? So now they're saying that they will give you actual Valiant comics, though, an entire set of the regular issues. That's kind of an interesting connection there. I'd like to know how that synergy happened. But there is a first prize here, which is an original piece of artwork actually used in the Defective Comics Premier Edition set. So that ain't bad. And then second prize, an uncut Defective Comics gold foil sheet signed and numbered by artist Mark Voger. Now, the gold foil is in quotations. I mean, obviously, it's not actual gold leaf put on these cards. It's just an effect, so I guess that's what they're going for. But the other one here is 100 winners for third prize could get an uncut Defective Comics silver foil sheet signed and numbered by artist Mark Voger. So there's some fun stuff to be, won. I mean, your odds are pretty good here, actually, of walking away with something, because how many people were buying this Defective Comics set? But either way, let's get into some laughs. Let's check out what else they wanted to make fun of this time around. Okay, so here we are starting off with a look at Rash Comics. So, hyperaction, misery, and misadventure. Introducing the Rashed, the rashest man alive. Okay, so obviously parody of the Flash here. First appearance of the Rash and Squawk Man. Yes, things were getting weird. This Super Zero thing was really starting to catch on, so Irrational Comics was cranking them out. The Rash could scratch his acne sores at super speed. Squawkman could drop a bird turd on a bad guy from a mile up. These guys eventually helped us win World War II. Sheesh. That's pretty wild. A little more Golden Age here. How about Blunder Woman, a 10-cent bummer issue? So a lot of drunk guys down below, I guess, enjoying a look at Blunder Woman. First appearance of Super Zero and Hot Pants. With the growing popularity of Super Zeros, it was decided that girls too needed a role model, so Blunder Woman was created. A half-naked Amazon who hangs out with only women and is still controlled by her mother. Some role model! How about some all losers comics instead of all winners comics, right? So 5 new famous bogus features. Sappy American, Bucktooth, the Human Dork, Boro, and Schlub Mariner. Alright, the Stranger. Anyway, this was it. A sappy American story by Joe Simple and Jack Coiby. A Human Dork story by Carl Burgers. And a Schlub Mariner story by Bill Evertwit. Not to mention stories starring the Stangle and Black Marvy. 2 zeros who no one can remember anymore. Truly, all the losers were gathered for this Mile Pebble book. Alright. So here's the team up on the other side of the aisle, right? All Boar Comics instead of All Star Comics. The Just Nuts Society of America. Wow, that's a bald Green Lantern over there. We got, Dr. Fate with a bucket on his head. Let's read about this a little bit more. Maybe they'll give us the members of the team. Okay, what do you do when you can't come up with any more new Super Zeros? Put them all in one book, like some kind of big fruit salad. The Just Nuts Society got along great, except that the sphincter kept disappearing. Later, Bruce puts on tights and adopts a young ward. You figure it out. What? Why are they mentioning a Bruce at all? That's weird. There's no Batman in the Justice Society at that point. All right, check this out. Marvy Comics #1 instead of Marvel Comics. So did they have him as the Human Dork even then? Yep, okay. And there's a guy grilling his bratwurst on the Human Dork. Let's check this out. First appearance of the Human Dork and the Schlub Mariner, first Marvy comic book. If only we had been warned. Scientists found the Human Dork extremely valuable. He heated up their coffee while they worked on their experiments. The Schlub Mariner, too, had his uses. He procured tuna during the war years. Tuna salad was a heavily rationed item back then, you know. All right, sticking with Marvel, how about the Sappy American? That's interesting. That's not quite as close to Captain America as you would imagine, but there's Bucktooth instead of Bucky. And it appears that he is throwing a pie in Hitler's face instead of a haymaker. Joe Simple and Jack Coiby created Stupor Patriot Sappy American who fights Adolf Hitler and his nasties by throwing trash can lid at them. Meanwhile, Sap's sidekick Bucktooth gave the young boys back home someone to identify with, especially the ones with really bad overbites. All right, but here's an icon, the birth of, Spider Sam? Yes, indeed. So it looks like he's got his Aunt May there that he's taken along, but let's see what they tell us about her. After creating the Spastic Four, Stan Lane was really on a roll, but the best was yet to come when he and artist Steve Dripko collaborated on the origin of Peter Parkett, the wussy teenager whose senile aunt put radioactive spider eggs in his wheat cake batter. Though Petey can now climb walls and beat up school bully Rash Thompson, he still can't score a date. Wah, wah. All right, getting back into the early days of funny books, we have the Drip Drop comics. We got Tarzan, Dull Abner instead of Little Abner, Floozy Ritz, Clinical Susie, Billy Macon Pants. What? Mr. and Mrs. Beanhead. All right, let's find out what they're telling us about this. Now that this infant medium of comics was potty trained, the syndicates themselves started putting out funny books. America bought them and read them and applied petroleum jelly to the resulting rash. Oh, how about this? This is intense. Grime suspense gories. We'll see who's not going bowling tonight. All right. Senator Estes keeper off asked Eck publisher Bill Gainsway if he thought the cover was in bad taste. Absolutely not, Bill testified. We didn't show her head rolling down the alley, picking up a spare on a 710 split. That would have been in bad taste. All right, now here, let's get into some Silver Age. How about Superman's main squeeze Lois Lame, a Victoria's Secret catalog from hell with Catnip Woman's black undies. I'll teach you to raid my lingerie closet. So there you go. And they have Stupor Pussycat, formerly Stuperman. So having some fun with the transformations back in the day. The Batman craze was in full swing thanks to the TV series starring Adam East and Burt Wart. So Catnip Woman made an appearance in Lois Lane, and the two had a little impromptu lingerie party. How about the Incredible Hunk from Marvel Comics? Looking pretty good there. Very dapper Hunk. Will he sell comics or not? Let's see. Bruce, or was it Robert Banter, becomes a gray, or was it green monster when exposed to the Ramalama rays? Funny thing is, his girlfriend likes him better that way. Now here's a transformation for Blunder Woman. Regret the old, the new Blunder Woman is weird. Yes, during her kung fu days or whatever. Times were changing and so were comics. Diana Priss quits the military, dumps Steve Tremor, renounces her powers, and turns groovy. Teenage girls across the nation quit school and ran away from home. Thanks a lot, Irrational. Oh, here's another piece. How about Metadorko, the Condiment Man? Oh, that's pretty wild right there. Butter, mustard, relish, ketchup, jelly, soy sauce. By 1964, superheroes were getting freakier and freakier. Metadorko was the freakiest. When in a restaurant, he would never say, "Pass me the ketchup," because he is the ketchup. Oh, how about the Just Nuts League of America versus Stinko the Conqueror? Oh, not just Starro. Okay, let's check this out here. Just when Irrational Comics thought it had dug up and dusted off every superhero concept from the olden age, Julie Schmaltz stumbles upon the Just Nuts Society. At least it gave John Jerk and the Martian Man Girl Chaser a little extra exposure. That's pretty fun. All right, how about some Batman comics? Oh, yes, indeed. The Snorigin of Batman. Young Bruce Lame and his parents are held up in a dark alley by a gun-wielding thug. Bruce prays and prays that his parents will get their heads blown off so he can party at Lame Manor. Later, Bruce puts on tights and adopts a young ward. You figure it out. They really liked that phrase. Okay. How about Tales to Suspect? The Ironic Man. So there's Iron Man made out of soup cans. And look at over here. Hey, give me back my Ironic Man suit. So it looked like he was stealing them. He lives, he walks, he falls down. Clunk, clunk, clunk. All right. Tony Starch wants to be with his secretary Peppery Pitts, but he's so rich he hires Slappy Hooligan to do it for him, and submit a detailed report later. As Ironic Man, Starch fights communism and rust stains. All right, back to the Golden Age here. We have a little bit more from Marvy Comics and the Schlub Mariner. Apparently beating up bikini girls on some type of... Let's find out what's going on here. Once again, the Schlub Mariner and the Human Dork were fighting the Third Wretch. President Franklin Delano Snooze-a-Lot endorsed Merry Misery Comics. They made a great pooper scooper for his pooch fella. Aw. All right, back to DC here with Schmoface. Schmoface instead of Showcase, if you say so. The Gruff and the Lame, the Annoyer and the Annoyee. This is a tale that'll make you say, oh, brother. Squawk and the Doof, instead of Hawk and Dove, huh? Vietnam War protests were reaching a fevered pitch, so New Irrational had Carmine Infantile developed the Squawk and the Doof with Marvy defector Steve Dripko. One is mean and ugly, the other is meek and ugly. Oh, here we go. How about Wimp Comics instead of Wiz Comics? Maybe this one hasn't, not aged quite as well. When the paperboy Billy Babbling screamed, shaboom! His hairline receded, he suddenly sprouted pubic hair, and he found himself wearing a very tight red jumpsuit with very flamboyant boots. And yet he still had a little boy's thoughts. Today, Captain Mental fans are all in analysis. Okay, so back to Schmoface here with Gangrene Lantern. The Menace of the Runaway Parade Float. Hey, that's Bullwinkle. Let's see what it says here. Hal Jerkin is a professional pizza taster. He tests pizza 40 hours a week for Amalgamated Consumables, America's chief producer of frozen pizza. A bunch of blue midgets from space make him a super zero. I gotta test less pepperoni at work, says Hal. All right, ooh, here's a famous cover reimagined. Hyperaction. He's got the good and humorous truck that he's attacking there. Let's see here. Jerry Siegel and Joe Shoestring went to every publisher in the United States with their Superman concept and were turned down every time. Was it the tights? Were they afraid no one would believe a guy could fly and deflect bullets? Did they all curse themselves to their graves? You bet. Ooh, more Schmoface here with the Mental Men. If we mental men fail, we won't get a comic book series of our own versus the Flaming Doof. Okay. None of the editors at Irrational had an idea for Schmoface number 37. Bob Canopies was blindfolded, hogtied, and stood on his head when he cremated the Mental Men. Ross Dandruff and Mike Escomido did the art. The first Mental Men story featured a flirtation between a scientist and a robot, and you thought 50s comics rotted young minds. Here's an interesting one. No Dimension Comics. Every page is illegible, red and blue ink. And you have Flighty Mouse, and it looks like you get some free No-D Flighty Mouse space goggles. This is the book that kicked off the No-D craze of the 50s. 40 years later, a generation of baby boomers are walking into walls and screaming for socialized vision care. Wow, so much Schmoface here because we have The Rash, but reimagined for the Silver Age. Let's find out here. Julius Schmaltz and Carmine Infantile illustrate the story of the Silver Age Rash, who could pop his zits and scratch his hives at super speed. A new era was dawning for comics. That's pretty gross. All right, but how about Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes, but the Legion of Super Zeros and Misadventure comics? We have Cowlick Boy, Lighthead Boy, and Sat On Girl. And there's some pizzas down there? Interesting. Let's find out what's going on here. As if Superboy wasn't selling enough books already, editor Moist Wisinguy sent him off to the next century to hang out with the Legions. His favorite duo dumbbell, he said. I could date two of her simultaneously. All right. How about we get back to the unfazing Spider Sam, now in his own book. Let's find out what's going on here. In 1963, Spider-Sam became so popular he won his own title, and then mysteriously, Petey Parkett could suddenly afford a gross kaopectate and hot water bottles for his sickly aunt. the worst appearance of J. Bonehead Jerkston, editor of the Daily Trombone. And then we get The Offenders! Assemble! Sappy American bores again. Let's check this out. The offenders find a giant red, white, and blue popsicle. Dessert for a week, exclaims the wisp, but it melts into Sappy American, whose first words are, "Let's fight the third Reich!" And finally here, how about the question mark men? Yes, indeed. Let's see how they explain what that's supposed to be. They're fighting Bagnito. You can see we actually have, he didn't look enough like a snowman. They decided to make him into an actual snowman there with Iceman, but let's see here. All right, introduce the question mark man, a group of mutant teenagers. Hey, sounds like the Archie gang, don't it? Marvy Gal, Frosty, the Strangel, the Boast, Cyclod, all led by Professor Xylophone, an anal retentive bald guy. Betcha this comic will last a few years, right? All right, well, this video is over, not lasted a few years. Let's find out which was my favorite for Defective Comics. So that brings us to the end of our ride with Defective Comics. It was pretty fun, wasn't it? I mean, it was an interesting, if you like your Mad Magazine, your Cracked. I loved my Cracked back in the day. You can't help but get a laugh at some of the goofs on very familiar bits of comic book history. A very nice parody there. But which was my favorite? I gotta say, the inedible hunk here. I just thought, that's funny. When does the Hulk get to be dapper and good looking? It's so rare. I guess during the Peter David run, right? I always called him Fabio Hulk. He was just too good looking, too smart. I didn't like that era as much. But either way, thank you so much for checking out part 2 of this video. And we will be back soon enough with some more retro trading cards of the comic book variety to take a look at. In the meantime, stay subscribed here on YouTube. Check out our other videos, why don't you? But also check out our main podcast if you love comic book history and nostalgia. Wizards, the podcast guide to comics. You can find us at wizardscomics.com or just search Wizards, the podcast guide to comics, on your favorite podcast app. Why don't you follow us over there so you get every episode as we cover each and every issue of Wizard Magazine. We got a lot of fun stuff coming up here at the end of the year and going into 2026. We'll be finishing up the year 2001 in the publishing cycle and then get into 2002. So lots to explore. You can also find us on social media at Wizards Comics, at Wizards_Comics on Instagram, where you'll get to see scans from Wizard Magazine to tickle your nostalgia bone. But hey, thanks for checking out this video once again, and until next time, keep your books bagged and boarded.